Stay quiet if you can't speak normally, she would hiss. She was embarrassed when I opened my mouth in public. Until Grandpa came and told me that as a child, she couldn't speak either. I was 6 when the stuttering started. Not the cute kind of stumbling over words that kids do when they're excited. This was different. My tongue would get stuck like there was glue in my mouth, and the harder I tried to push the words out, the worse it got. Simple things became mountains. Ordering at restaurants turned into nightmares. Answering the phone was torture. Mom couldn't handle it. Every time I'd start to speak and the words would jam up, her face would twist with this expression I came to know too well. Part anger, part disgust, part something else I couldn't name back then. Now I know it was shame. Speak up or shut up, she'd snap when I tried to tell her about my day at school. If we were at the grocery store and the cashier asked if I wanted a bag, she'd answer for me before I could even attempt it. When relatives visited, she'd send me to my room if I started talking. Go play, she'd say, but her eyes said something different. They said you're embarrassing me. The worst part wasn't even the stuttering itself. It was watching her shoulders tense up every time I opened my mouth. Like she was bracing for impact. Like my voice was a weapon pointed at her reputation. School became my refuge, ironically. Teachers were patient, mostly. Kids could be cruel, sure, but at least their cruelty was honest. They'd mock me and move on. Mom's disappointment was constant, hanging over every meal, every car ride, every attempt at normal conversation. I started keeping a notebook, writing down things I wanted to say but couldn't get out. Funny observations about neighbors, questions about why the sky was blue, complaints about homework. Pages and pages of thoughts that never made it past my lips because speaking had become this minefield where every word might detonate in my face. The silence at home grew thick. Mom would ask yes or no questions exclusively. Did you do your homework? Are you hungry? Ready for bed? I'd nod or shake my head, and she'd look relieved. We developed this whole system of communication that bypassed my voice entirely. But Grandpa was different. He'd visit twice a month, this gentle old man with weathered hands and endless patience. He'd sit with me for hours, never rushing, never finishing my sentences. When I'd get stuck on a word, he'd just wait. Sometimes he'd nod encouragingly. Sometimes he'd say, "Take your time, kiddo. The words will come. You're not broken," he told me once when I was maybe 8. After a particularly brutal dinner where Mom had snapped at me for trying to tell a story about a dog I'd seen on the way home from school. You're just different. And different isn't bad. I wanted to believe him. But it was hard when the person who was supposed to love me most in the world acted like my voice was a personal attack on her existence. Update 1. High school was when things got really bad. Not just the stuttering. That had actually improved some over the years, though it never went away completely. But the damage was done. I'd learned to be invisible. I sat in the back of classrooms, never raised my hand, ate lunch alone. I had acquaintances but no real friends because friendship requires talking, and talking was still this terrifying risk. Mom seemed happier with my silence. She'd tell her friends I was the quiet type, like it was a virtue. But I could see the relief in her eyes when we'd go to parent-teacher conferences, and I'd just nod along while she did all the talking. I started having these dreams where I was screaming, but no sound came out. Or sometimes I'd dream I was giving a speech to a huge crowd, words flowing perfectly, and I'd wake up feeling like I'd lost something precious. The notebook habit continued. By junior year, I had dozens of them. Stories, observations, jokes I'd never tell, arguments I'd never make. I was probably the most well-documented mute person in the state. There was this girl in my chemistry class who always smiled at me. Really smiled, not the polite kind. I wanted to talk to her so badly it physically hurt. I'd practice conversations in my head, plan out exactly what I'd say, but whenever I got near her, my throat would close up and I'd just wave awkwardly and walk away. One day she actually approached me. "Hey, I'm working on this lab report. Want to be partners?" I opened my mouth and nothing came out. Just stood there like an idiot, face burning red. She waited maybe 10 seconds then said, "Okay, maybe next time," and walked away. I went home and punched a hole in my bedroom wall. Mom found me sitting on my bed, knuckles bleeding, staring at the hole. For a second, I thought she might ask if I was okay. Instead, she said, "Your grandfather called. He wants to come over this weekend." That weekend, Grandpa showed up with this old shoebox under his arm. We were sitting on the back porch, Mom inside making dinner, when he set it down between us. "I've been thinking about something for a long time," he said, about whether to show you this or not. The box was full of old cassette tapes, the kind people used to record family gatherings back in the day. He pulled out one labeled 1985 in faded blue ink. Your mom was about your age when I recorded this, he said. Maybe a little younger. He had brought an old tape player, the kind with the big, chunky buttons. He popped the tape in and pressed play. At first, it was just static. Then voices, Grandpa's voice, much younger, and someone else. A girl. Come on, sweetheart. Just tell me about your day at school. Silence. It's okay, take your time. Then, stuttering. Bad stuttering. Worse than mine had ever been. I went to the LL library and the girl's voice broke. Started crying. It's okay, baby girl. You're doing great. Keep going. I looked at Grandpa. Is that? He nodded. Your mother. She was 12 here. Update 2. I listened to that tape 3 times that night. Each time, it hit me like a truck. The frustration in that little girl's voice. The way she'd start a sentence full of hope and then hit that wall, the same wall I knew so well. The tears. The apologies. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm trying. You have nothing to be sorry for, sweetheart. Nothing at all. But what really got me was how patient Grandpa was with her. How gentle. The same way he'd always been with me. It was like listening to a different universe, one where struggling with words was met with kindness instead of shame. Mom didn't know I had the tape. Grandpa had sworn me to secrecy, said it wasn't his story to tell. But knowing the truth changed everything. Every sharp word she'd ever said to me, every time she'd cut me off or sent me away, suddenly had this whole other layer to it. I started watching her differently, really watching. And once I knew what to look for, I could see the traces of it. The way she'd pause sometimes before saying certain words, like she was testing them out first. How she'd avoid phone calls when she could. The slight tremor in her voice when she had to speak in front of groups. She'd beaten it, mostly. Forced herself to speak normally through what must have been years of determination and probably a lot of pain. But the scars were there if you knew where to look. The anger I'd carried for so long started shifting into something else. Not forgiveness, exactly, but understanding. She wasn't just ashamed of me. She was terrified of me becoming her. Of me going through what she'd gone through. But here's the thing. I wasn't going through what she'd gone through. I was going through something different. Something that might have been better if she'd just let me be human about it. Senior year arrived, and I was still carrying this secret around. College applications were due, and for the first time, I actually wanted to go. Not because I had some grand plan, but because I needed to get away from the weight of all this unspoken history. I was accepted to a state school about 3 hours away. Far enough to feel like freedom, close enough that I couldn't use distance as an excuse to cut ties completely. The night before I left, Mom knocked on my door. She looked nervous, which was weird because I don't think I'd ever seen her nervous before. I want to talk to you about something, she said. I figured it was going to be the usual send-off speech about working hard and not wasting the opportunity. Instead, she sat on my bed and stared at her hands for a long time. I know I haven't been. I know I've been hard on you about the speaking thing. I waited. This was the closest she'd ever come to acknowledging it directly. I just wanted you to be strong. To not have to go through. She stopped. Started again. I wanted better for you. I could have left it there. Let her believe her version of the story. But I was 18 and angry and tired of protecting everyone else's feelings. I know about the tapes, I said. Her face went white. What tapes? Grandpa showed me. From when you were 12. The silence that followed was different from all the other silences we'd shared. This one was full of everything we'd never said to each other. He shouldn't have done that, she whispered. Yes, he should have. And then she did something I'd never seen her do before. She broke down. Not pretty crying, but ugly, desperate sobbing. The kind that comes from holding something in for too long. They used to hit me, she said between sobs. Teachers, my parents, other kids. They said I was stupid, that I was doing it for attention. They'd make me stand in front of the class and try to read until I got it right. I'd be up there for hours sometimes. I sat next to her, not sure what to do with my hands. I swore when I had a kid, I'd never let them go through that. I'd make them strong. I'd make them normal. But I wasn't abnormal, I said. I was just a kid who stuttered. I know, she said. I know that now. But back then, all I could see was myself. All I could hear was those voices telling me I was broken. Final update. Something shifted that night. Not everything. You don't undo 18 years of damage in one conversation. But something fundamental changed between us. I went to college, and for the first time in my life, I started talking to people. Really talking. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I joined study groups, made friends, even called girls I liked. The stuttering was still there, but it wasn't this shameful secret anymore. It was just part of how I talked. I discovered I was actually pretty funny when I let myself be. I had opinions about things. I could tell stories. The years of writing everything down had given me this weird advantage. I knew how to structure thoughts, how to build to a punchline, how to make words count. Mom and I started talking on the phone once a week. Actual conversations, not just logistics. She told me about her childhood, about the speech classes she'd taken in secret, about how she'd practiced in mirrors for hours to learn to control her face when words got stuck. I told her about my friends, about classes I liked, about the girl I was dating who thought my stutter was endearing rather than embarrassing. She listened without trying to fix anything. During winter break, I brought my girlfriend home. Mom was nervous about meeting her, kept asking if I'd warned her about the family quirks. At dinner, we were talking about some movie we'd all seen, and I got stuck on a word. Just locked up completely in the middle of a sentence. Old me would have gone red and shut down. Instead, I just waited it out, found another way to say what I meant, and kept going. Later, my girlfriend said, "Your mom was watching you so carefully when that happened. Like she was ready to jump in and protect you." That's when I realized something had healed that I didn't even know was broken. The real revelation came during spring break. I was home for a week, and Mom was telling me about some confrontation she'd had with a neighbor about their barking dog. She was getting worked up, talking faster, and suddenly she stumbled over a word. Just once, barely noticeable, but she stopped mid-sentence and looked panicked. "It's okay," I said. "I heard you." She looked at me like I'd just told her she was forgiven for something she'd been carrying around for decades. "I still do that sometimes," she said quietly. "When I'm upset or tired." "So do I. But you don't hide it anymore." "No, I don't." We sat there in her kitchen, two people who'd spent years afraid of their own voices, finally comfortable with the silence between words. I graduated college and got a job that required me to give presentations sometimes. The first time I had to speak in front of a group of 30 people, I called Mom the night before. "What if I freeze up?" I asked. "Then you take a breath and try again," she said. "And if that doesn't work, you take another breath and try again. That's all any of us can do." I didn't freeze up. I stumbled a few times, found my rhythm, and actually enjoyed it. Afterward, my boss said I had a natural way of connecting with people, that I made everyone feel comfortable. I thought about all those notebooks full of words I'd never spoken, all those conversations I'd never had, all those years of believing my voice was something to be ashamed of. The stuttering never completely went away. I still get stuck sometimes, especially when I'm tired or emotional. But now when it happens, I don't feel like I'm failing at being human. I feel like I'm just being myself. Mom and I talk almost every day now. Sometimes she still gets impatient with pauses, but she catches herself and apologizes. Sometimes I still feel that old familiar tightness in my throat when I have something important to say, but I push through it because I know she's listening. Last month, she told me she started volunteering with kids who have speech difficulties. She said she wants to be the adult she needed when she was 12. "I can't undo what I did to you," she said during one of our calls. "But maybe I can keep other parents from making the same mistakes." "You didn't break me," I told her. "You were just scared." "I was terrified," she said. "But that's not an excuse." "No, it's not. But it's an explanation. And sometimes that's enough." I'm 25 now. I have friends who've never heard me stutter because I'm comfortable enough with them that it rarely happens. I have other friends who know all about it because I've told them the story. I'm dating someone who says my voice is her favorite sound in the world, stammers and all. Sometimes I think about that 6-year-old kid who learned to be afraid of his own voice. I wish I could go back and tell him that words are just words, that the people who love you will wait for them, and that silence is only empty if you let it be. But mostly, I'm grateful for where the journey led, for the notebooks that taught me to value words, for the silence that taught me to value speech, for the shame that taught me the importance of acceptance, and for a mother who loved me enough to be terrified of me becoming her, and brave enough to let me become myself instead. The cassette tape is in my apartment now. Grandpa gave it to me before he passed last year. Sometimes I listen to it and hear that scared little girl who grew up to be my mother. But mostly, I hear the patient voice of a father who knew that love sometimes means just waiting for the words to come. I'm learning to be that patient with myself, with others, with the spaces between words where all the real conversations happen. And for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid to speak up.